Hey guys, welcome back. So if you haven't noticed, I have some new music. If you're listening to the podcast version, there's some new music that my friend made, Richard Perez. Needed some custom music and he whipped some up in like seconds. It's amazing and it's mine. No more cease and desists from these big record companies about using music that is not mine. Anyway, I just wanted to pop on here for a few minutes and talk about fear. You know, I realize fear is something that I deal with on a regular basis. Everybody has fear, and people that would like to exercise, or people that are just disabled by their fear, I think are doing it incorrectly. They're doing this thing called life the wrong way. And so, we all have fear. And, and I think back, so many people that are out of shape, that are overweight, um, they their biggest problem is most of them are very terrified of understanding or realizing how bad it really is, right? Most people don't want to know how much overweight they are or how out of shape they really are. They know it's bad. They don't think it's bad enough, but they don't want to really examine that. Um, and so they're not, that's that part of fear. And then back when I've thought about this, and so that's why I have a couple little stories about it. But back when I was getting started in triathlon, I was so nervous and I had this level of fear about it. And when I really broke it down, why I was so afraid of, right? It was I wasn't afraid of not being able, to complete it or anything like that. It was more I would have a fear of getting to transition, having a flat tire, and not knowing how to deal with that, right? So that was the fear. But then I realized with that situation that, fear is just like a warning signal, and you have to know how to address it and use it in your favor. And so once I learned how to change a tire and deal with that situation, that fear was gone. So that's where, I think fear is a good thing. Fear is not something you can live in or have on a regular basis, but I don't think there's anything wrong with fear. Just like everything else, you need to understand what it means. So it kind of goes back to awareness. Whenever you're feeling something, you need to be aware of what that actually means in that situation. So fear, for instance, if there's a fire in your kitchen or in your office or whatever, if there's a fire, and most of us have smoke alarms or fire alarms, and when those go off, it's now time to address the situation, right? Meaning either put the fire out on the stove or get the toast out of the toaster or evacuate because there is a fire somewhere and you don't know what to do. Or there's nothing you can do. But so that's where that smoke alarm, that fire alarm is our fear. So there's a problem somewhere with smoke or fire, meaning too much of it. The alarm goes off. That's fear. And then fear is telling you, hey, something's not right, or something's not like it's supposed to be, or you don't understand what's going on and you just stop and figure out what it is. So your fear is, I think it's good for you. And I think it's something you have to be, just address. And if you're, and I kind of, fear and stress kind of go hand in hand for me. I don't know that I'm very um, fearful of many things anymore. But I think people that are, I just talked to a friend yesterday and she's afraid, fearful of COVID. Um, and plane flying over. She's terrified and afraid of COVID, and so she's been in her house this whole time. And I think you have to even look at that and understand what that means too. If you are afraid, what are you afraid of? I think most people are afraid of dying. And I think if you're afraid of dying, that really means you're afraid of either not finishing what you're supposed to finish, or you're afraid of not being able to do something again. So when you take that into, an example, then, is what you're avoiding or afraid of worth what you're missing? And, if my train of thought is that if I was afraid of getting COVID and I was afraid of getting it and dying, right? That's the big fear. Then, you know, I would be afraid of that because I wouldn't be able to hug a loved one again or see one of my family members again. And I think that's where people are most terrified or afraid. But if you really look at that and think, okay, if that's what I'm so afraid of, and you avoid contact or avoid interaction with people or the world, and then, something else happens, they're hit by a car or they're tragically, leave us, um, then was it worth it? It's one of those things I think you really have to examine, um, what you're afraid of and then really deal with it accordingly. I think it's one of those things, you could, I don't understand that level of fear. I understand it's serious. And if, you've got some things you need to get done in this world, then that's definitely, living's a priority. Right. But, I think you just have to examine that. And I don't know that that's a good place to be, being that afraid. So just kind of my thought on that. But fear, fear can be your benefit, but then you have to, I think, look at whether fear is rational. Is it a rational fear you have? Um, if you're afraid that every time you, get on a bicycle, you're going to crash, is that rational? I know people who are just can't get back on the bike. They're afraid to death because of a crash they've had in the past. And I think you have to look at that fear. And I think that really means, the bigger picture is they were probably in an accident. They don't know what happened. And because they can't identify how it happened or why it happened, then they don't know how to prevent it. And so I think that's one of those things you got to just be, just be conscious of that fear and address it. We've all been there. We've all had it. So I think it's just one of those things, what are you really feeling? Fear's good. And you've got to just use that as a warning light on your dash of your car, smoke detector, in your house. What's it telling you? Telling you, hey, you need to pay attention to this, or else, you know, you're gonna be in trouble. I, for a long time, had a fear of snakes, and I think I somehow just figured out that I actually don't come into contact with that many snakes. And if I did, I don't have to pick it up. I can walk around it. It's not going to jump on me. It's one of those things when I really broke down the fear of snakes. It's not that severe, right? It's not really a true fear. And it went away. I know for a long time I had a fear of heights, but I didn't really have a fear of heights. I have no problem climbing. It's more of a trust thing, right? So if there's a ladder that is sturdy or a scaffolding that's sturdy or something like that, if I can hold onto it with my hand, I can climb up comfortably. I'm not afraid of that. But one time I was lifting myself up in my friend's, like a bucket truck, right, to get on top of a roof. And the bucket truck was so jerky and shaky. it really messed me up. And I think it was more of a control thing. I wasn't very high off the ground, but it just kind of freaked me out the way it was rocking around, throwing around. Like I didn't fully wrap my brain around that everything was okay. I was just more shocked by the movement of the machine, right? Um, but now it doesn't bother me. I can get on top of a ladder, I can do things like that, but as long as I can have the control of holding on, then that fear's not there. So I think that's where I taken that fear of heights and going, okay, I'm more afraid of falling and getting hurt. So as long as I can take those measures to not to be safe, well then I'm not afraid of it. So you can take that fear and learn from it. So anyway, guys, guess that's it for this episode. And I should have more. We've had a lot of weird things come up around here. So I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.